Coffin Young Readers, Level 3 Mummies. Written by Joyce Milton, illustrated by Susan Swan, and with photographs. In Egypt, giant pyramids rise above the sand. Who built them, and why? The pyramids were built thousands of years ago by great kings. The kings were called pharaohs. It took 100,000 workers 20 years to build the biggest pyramid. But no pharaoh ever lived in a pyramid. How could he? There are no windows and no doors. That's because a pyramid is a tomb. After a pharaoh died, his body was put inside it. Like all Egyptians, the pharaoh believed in life after death. His spirit would live on in the land of the dead. Life there would be just like life on earth, only better. In the land of the dead, the pharaoh could do all the things he loved: ride, hunt, and fish. He could even have parties. But to enjoy life after death, the pharaoh still needed his body. So his body was made into a mummy. A mummy is a body that has been dried out like a raisin. It will not rot away. King Khufu was the pharaoh who built the biggest pyramid of all. On the day Khufu died, his family was with him. So were priests. Soon after, a boat took Khufu's body across the Nile River. Other priests were waiting to make the king's body into a mummy. It took about 70 days from beginning to end to make a mummy. First, the undertakers cut open Khufu's body. They left his heart inside, but they took out his lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines. These parts were put into special jars with lids shaped like animals and guts. They would be placed in the pyramid along with the mummy. Next, the body was packed in natron. Natron is like salt. After many weeks in natron, Khufu's body was all dried out. Now, the body weighed much less than it had before. The skin was like leather, hard and tight. The undertakers then tore fine, white cloth into long strips. They wrapped the strips around the mummy from head to toe. Priests in masks watched the work. They said prayers over the body. They placed the magic charms and jewels between the strips of cloth. After the mummy was all wrapped, the undertakers covered it with sticky sap from trees. Once the sap dried, the mummy was as hard as a statue. At last, it was time for Khufu's funeral. His mummy was put in a fancy coffin, and that coffin was put in another fancy coffin. Then Khufu's mummy was placed on a sled and dragged to his pyramid. A long parade followed. Priests said prayers. Women tore their clothes and cried out loud. Deep inside the pyramid, a hallway led to a small room. There, the priest said one last prayer for the mummy. The prayer was called the opening of the mouth. Now, Khufu would be able to speak and eat again. Other rooms in the pyramid were filled with fancy furniture and jewels. The treasures were for Khufu to enjoy in the afterlife. When all was in place, the hallway was plugged with blocks of stone. The workers leapt by a secret passage. Then the passage was filled with rocks and walled over. All this was done to keep Khufu's mummy and treasure safe. After a while, the pharaohs stopped building pyramids. Instead, they built tombs deep underground. The mummies in these tombs looked even more lifelike. Undertakers put stuffing under the mummy's skin. This made its cheeks rounder. They made fake eyes out of glass or black and white stones. When the mummy was done, its face was painted. Some mummies had fake eyebrows made of real hair. This is a fancy mummy wig. In the beginning, only kings, queens, and very important people were made into mummies. But as time went on, more and more people wanted their bodies prepared for the next world. Some people had their pets made into mummies too. One man had two animals put in his tomb with him, his dog and his pet baboon. There were mummies made of other animals too, like bulls and snakes and even crocodiles. These were to honor gods and goddesses to who looked like the animals. The god Thoth had the head of a bird. The bird was an ibis, so ibis mummies were made. One goddess looked like a cat. There were temples in her honor filled with thousands of cat mummies. This is one cat mummy. Once a mummy was buried, it was supposed to be safe. But was it? No. People robbed the tombs. They wanted the treasure. Some robbers even came to steal the mummies. Many people thought the mummy had magic powers. Travelers came from far away to find them. They ground up the mummies and sold mummy medicine. They thought eating mummy power would make them strong. Instead, it usually made them sick. Some travelers brought mummies home with them. They unwrapped the mummies to see what they looked like. They even sold tickets to people who wanted to watch. Today, scientists study mummies. They want to learn all they can about them. This mummy is kept at a hospital in Boston. Its name is Paddy Hashef, but scientists just called it Paddy. Scientists do not even need to unwrap mummies to study them. They can use X-rays. X-rays can show what disease people had long ago. Scientists and explorers have been searching for mummies for hundreds of years. So many have been found. Can any more be left? Yes, in 1995, scientists found a huge underground tomb. It was filled with mummies. Why was the tomb so big? It belonged to the children of a pharaoh. His name was Ramses the Great. Ramses had more than 100 children. Who knows? Under the rocks and sand, there may be more mummies waiting to be found. Thank you for watching.